Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, coming to you live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Senate meets with Nigeria's security chiefs over arms proliferation, killings and kidnappings across the country, speaks special funding for security agencies. Lawmakers in the House of Representatives divided over Electoral Act amendment as bill passes second reading in the lower chamber. We begin the assessment of President Buhari's 3 years administration with a focus tonight on politics. And 3 patients infected with the Ebola virus escaped from a hospital isolation ward in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, channelstv.com has more information for you, and on youtube.com/channelsweb, you can watch our videos. You can also watch us on your mobile device via your browser or download the Channels TV app for Android, iOS and Windows devices from their respective stores. Besides giving you access to news updates on the go, the Channels TV and Channels 24 app have an eyewitness feature that you can use to share pictures, videos or news of happenings around you. Just install the app, then tap and swipe to reveal the menu and then follow the instructions. The Nigerian Medical Association and the Joint Health Sector Union have been trading blame over the prolonged industrial action embarked upon by JOHESU. While the NMA accuses members of JOHESU of sabotage, the striking health workers insist the doctors' union is fabricating stories to make their demands look outrageous before the federal government. JOHESU members have been on strike in the last 5 weeks, a situation that's adversely affected health services in some government hospitals across the country.
It is no longer news that members of the Joint Health Sector Union, JOHESU, have been on strike for over a month now. Several reconciliation meetings with the federal government have also ended in deadlock. What is perhaps new is the ongoing blame game and apparent power tussle between the Nigerian Medical Association (NMA) and members of the Joint Health Sector Union. At this news conference in Abuja, members of the NMA accuse the striking JOHESU members of sabotage, describing the industrial action as an act targeted at the NMA. They also insist that the crux of the matter is agitations for equal pay with the medical doctors, an allegation that JOHESU leadership denies.
Nigerian Medical Association (FCT) wishes to state clearly that the ongoing strike action by JOHESU is essentially against medical doctors in particular. This strike, we must let Nigerians know, is centered on quest for equal pay with medical doctors, as well as leadership position contestation in our hospitals.
This issue of misleading Nigerians, confusing Nigerians to say, oh, we are asking for equal pay, equal pay. Where was the equal pay? It has never been there. When they were taking 260,000, our nurses, our graduates on level 8 were taking 118,000. They now adjusted theirs to 312. We are saying, please, if you are reviewing that up again and widening that gap, please restore that gap that was there.
The striking health workers resumed negotiations with the federal government on Tuesday behind closed doors. However, a statement from the Ministry of Labour and Employment after that meeting urges JOHESU members to obey a court order that allegedly directed the striking health workers to suspend their action within 24 hours, a development that JOHESU have also responded to.
I have not received it, but even if I receive it, constitutionally, as a citizen, as an organization, we have the constitutional right to comply with the court order, or we challenge the court order.
The endless strike in the health sector is already taking its toll on patients, and the apparent power play between the NMA, JOHESU and the federal government is obviously not in the interest of patients who want the crisis resolved immediately.
In a matter of days, it will be 3 years since the Buhari administration took charge of the seat of power in Nigeria. And May the 29th is the day at which the transition from the military government to democracy happened 19 years ago. That day is commemorated as Nigeria's Democracy Day. We begin our assessment of the Buhari government 3 years on with politics. Our political correspondent Sheung Okimbaloye reports.
It is 19 years since Nigeria returned to civilian rule. Yes, 19 years. How time flies. The transition happened on the 29th of May 1999, and that's why the day has been declared Democracy Day. Well, politics, they say, is a game of numbers. So let's take a look at some of the numbers you need to know. Since the last 19 years, Nigeria has had 4 presidents, including the incumbent Muhammadu Buhari. At the last general elections, Nigeria has about 68 million registered voters, and since that election, a lot has changed. The number of registered political parties have risen from 40 to 68, and today marks the 268th day to the 2019 elections. Trust me, that has been the crux of the recent intensity of political activities and horse trading. Since the last 3 years when President Muhammadu Buhari was sworn in, a lot has happened. The executive and legislative relationship has been sort of a cat and mouse game. The constitution amendment process and electoral amendment exercise have all been stalled. The main opposition party, PDP, has perhaps gone through a cycle of internal party turmoil, and they say they have their eyes to returning to prominence at the center.
You want bad politicians?
In that time too, different political movements have emerged. One led by former President Olusegun Obasanjo. If you ask him about his general friend, he will tell you, frankly, what he feels.
The man who has taken over from Jonathan has not met the expectation of Nigeria.
But if you ask big wigs within the APC, their conviction about 2019 is very strong.
I'm confident that we're going to win the 2019 election.
For close watchers, a few boxes need to be checked to assess the Buhari government, which is 3 years old this month, including some of the highlights of what they promised. Is security better? Is the government really fighting corruption as promised? Has the Nigerian economy improved and shown great prospects now? And to issues of Nigeria's democracy, is the rule of law respected? Are the institutions and systems better? The fight against corruption, for example, is a major one, but how far? Indeed, some questions begging for answers. But for an average Nigerian on the street, the needs are quite simple.
It is electricity. The agitations of Nigerians are very, very simple. If government fixes power.
The Buhari government is 3 years old. They insist they will fulfill what they promised at the campaigns. Democracy Day in Nigeria is an opportunity to reminisce on the gains of our burden practice, especially when the issue of sustainability is raised and the unity of the nation called to question. Showa Kimbaloye, reporting for Channels Television News.
Now let's take another look at the many perspectives of this. Joining me now is a Professor of Strategy and Development and Director of Studies, Center for International and Advanced Professional Studies, Anthony Killer. Thanks a lot for joining us on the News at 10.
Thank you for having me.
Now we've outlined all those different perspectives. Yeah. Let's just start from style of governance. How would you assess the style of governance that we've seen from this administration?
Well, I think overall the style of governance is clearly different from the styles we've had before. Objectively, this government is less communicative than the other ones we've had, and you can judge it by the number of interviews the president himself has conducted with the local media. You can judge it by acts that are debated and put forward by the government. I think this government, when the history of this administration will be written up to date, it will have the history of most media releases than any administration. Yeah,
though he is criticized for speaking to the international media more than the local media, yeah?
Well, yes. I mean, those are the kind of factors that will be investigated later on why such a choice. I'm sure you will not be very happy about that because you're a local media. But here we are. That style of government is different. I think the government is more sober than the other governments we've had. This president is less dramatic in most of the things. He's so sober that he's, almost absent.
I wouldn't think that he's absent. I think you should take that back.
No, almost.
Or do you mean in terms of his attitude or courage?
In terms of no drama.
Okay.
You know, the range of drama goes between very high drama, which is continuous presence, and then very low, almost no drama, which is almost absent. I'm very technical about it. There's nothing passionate about it, you know. You're almost absent when there is no action, there's no drama at all. You know, we've had, as we've said, you know, from the first president in this republic, which is Olusegun Obasanjo, where there was a very dramatic president, and you could see his humor, his ways, his off-the-cuff remarks, we didn't see very much of Jonathan, sort of Yaradua, but of Jonathan, who you could see also his behavior, his whims and likes.
Okay, in terms of the platform now that the president won on, the APC, let's look at internal democracy, let's look at the party itself, how they've carried themselves in terms of leadership. Do you see anything different from this? I mean, they always say they're different from the 16 years that we've experienced, but you cannot look past the congresses and what that has done to what is going on in the party. How do you assess the party?
Well, I think on content it's quite different, because for the first time this APC is a coalition of parties that came together. So you know, the origin is a different origin from the PDP, who was a national one party from day one. The question is, how have they managed the coalition that have come together to form a party? And the short answer to that is badly, because there's been a lot of incapacity, you know, almost an incompetency on the leadership to manage a coalition of very strong groups. You will see it from one of their first outing after election, which is the ability to choose leaders of the House, which they couldn't manage well. The last bit, you know, from the first bit of choosing the leader of the House to the way the Congress is managed today, is a continuous showing of that falling. But that tells you one thing, though, that what is happening today with the APC is a déjà vu. It's very similar to what happened to the PDP on its way out. So
in the last days.
In the last days.
Yes.
And, you know, and that is what happens when implosion is about to set in. But they still have some time, and let's see how they do that.
And it's interesting that, you know, that the argument is on the other side now. If you look at the way the administration is handling the opposition, does it remind you of the days of Jonathan and the opposition? They're criticized for not being very tolerant and, you know, not wanting to hear dissenting voices, particularly in the last couple of months. Would you say that that's a fair assessment of them?
I think, in fairness to this administration, I think the opposition is exaggerating. Because really they're looking for chaos where there's no chaos. You know, they're really looking for fire where there's no fire. The opposition has been, I go to that word, almost absent again. They're just finding their feet back on the table, but exaggerating the persecution. I think the freedom of speech has grown gradually in Nigeria. I think in the past 19 years of this democratic rule, if there is one clear thing that we've really achieved, is really freedom of speech. That is, it has not grown exponentially, but has grown gradually. But it's not merit to any of the government. It's more merit to technology.
You mean social media?
Social media and all kind of media, technology generally. The internet as a whole with social media. I think it's allowed people to express themselves, and less things can be hidden, as it were, before.
All right, just finally now, I'm looking at 2019 and the race for 2019. Now, when you look at the fact that not many people have come out in terms of opposing the president for the #1 seat, finally now and quickly in your last moments, how do you see that panning out?
Well, I think it depends. I think if the opposition continues to remain fragmented, the incumbent will win. But if the opposition is strong and wise enough to put themselves together and put up a fight, then the incumbent might lose the election. I think at the moment it is for the opposition to lose the battle, because the government is not exactly an A-star government, as it were.
All right, thank you.
Let's put it that way.
Professor of Strategy and Development, Anthony Kila, thanks a lot for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. When the news at 10 returns, Federal Accounts Allocation Committee shares a total of 701 billion naira to the 3 tiers of government for the month of April. That's on Business News. To stay with us.